Last time I worked in Seattle, I needed a bunch of equipment for the job, which meant I had to drive. So when the job was over, I got to do something really cool. The Evergreen Aviation and Space Museum is located in McMinnville, Oregon, which is about an hour south of Portland. The museum has around 200 planes, some of which you have actually seen, whether you know it or not, and one in particular was on my bucket list. I've wanted to see this airplane ever since I knew that it existed. It's an amazing aircraft. Just wait and see. So the first aircraft that you should recognize inside the massive open hangar style building that is the museum is this 1903 Wright Flyer. Now it is a replica, but it's still an amazing thing to see. I know everybody has seen the photographs and very possibly the old black and white silent film of the Wright brothers. But when you actually see the replica, it's a full-size replica, so you get a sense of the scale and size of the aircraft. It's still amazing to me that that very first plane was made out of wood and cloth. The pilot just had to hold on for dear life and pray and hope that everything went well. There are historic artifacts in the museum other than the airplanes. Like this vintage newspaper. It reports the execution of one of the Doolittle Flyers. So if you don't know, the Doolittle Flyers were pilots led by a man named James Doolittle, who participated in what is known as the Doolittle Raid. Doolittle had a crazy idea. He wanted to launch bombers from the deck of an aircraft carrier. Never been done before. The Flyers were successfully able to take off from the deck of that aircraft carrier and bombed Tokyo. It was the first time that the Allies had bombed anywhere in Japan. The raid showed the Japanese that they weren't untouchable, and it gave a huge morale boost to the American public. You'll also find an A-26C Invader. The Invader was an aircraft that started seeing service during World War II. It was a bomber interceptor aircraft that saw service all the way through the Korea War. The particular craft that they have at the museum is called Margie and is a beautiful example of the pinup style nose painting that the pilots preferred during World War II. Even though there is no shortage of military aircraft in the museum, you will find other things like this S-1S Special, which is renowned for its aerial acrobatic abilities. If history is your thing and you're enjoying the video, then please take the time to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us out. Then we come to the RC-3 Seabee. It was produced during World War II. They stopped making them about 1947, but you're still going to find several of them still in use. This particular plane, though, you very well may notice, because it was used in the James Bond movie, The Man with a Golden Gun. So this next plane is another one that you should recognize, especially if you're a James Bond fan. It's the Bead DB-5J, which is the world's lightest single-engine jet aircraft. It was used in the movie Octopussy. And finally, we come to the centerpiece of the museum. It's something that's been on my bucket list for as long as I can remember. Howard Hughes's flying boat, the Hughes Hercules H-4, better known as the Spruce Goose. It's the world's largest aircraft. The wingspan is longer than a football field. It stands as tall as a 3-story building, and it's made out of wood, hence the name Spruce Goose. Unless you've been to the museum to see it, you just really don't understand how big it is. Let's go back to one of the pictures I showed at the beginning of the video. I'm standing on a second floor balcony overlooking the interior of the museum. It takes up the entire space. Hughes's critics said it would never fly, but in November of 1947, he proved them wrong. It only took to the air the once, but that's all Howard Hughes needed to prove to the world that it would fly. Here you can see one of the engines for the aircraft. This thing is massive. And then here's a photo along one of the wings, and you can see all the engines lined up just on that one wing. So double that. I know in the Leverage episode, the Very Big Bird Job, they said that the aircraft fires up its engines once a year. That's not true. Can you imagine how much fuel it would take just to fire up those engines? And here's her nose again, so you can get a little bit of perspective. You can see the engine sitting there next to the plane. And remember, I said she's as tall as a 3-story building. And here's a view down her side. You can see all the aircraft parked around her for a sense of scale. Same thing with the tail section. Like I said, seeing the Spruce Goose was actually on my bucket list. So when I got the opportunity to go aboard and see the interior of the craft, I absolutely jumped on that. You can see, go upstairs to this huge deck that's sitting off to the side of the aircraft, and there's 2 great big entrances to go in. Of course, there's seating so that you can sit and wait comfortably for the time for your tour. Once you get aboard, you'll see this huge cavernous space on the inside, because she was designed to not only be a troop transport, but to transport equipment, including vehicles. Even though Howard Hughes did have a reputation for being a playboy, no, he wasn't headed to a beach party in the Spruce Goose. Those beach balls are there so that people can see them when they take the tour, because if you didn't see them, you might not believe it. The Spruce Goose is a flying boat, which means that it lands and takes off on water. Howard Hughes, being the real-life Tony Stark, came up with an ingenious method of using beach balls in the pontoons to provide the buoyancy that the Spruce Goose needed when she landed on water. So when I got to the museum, I found out that there was an add-on option to be able to actually go up on the flight deck of the Spruce Goose. So of course, I had to do that. Up on the flight deck, you see these rows of seating that are there. Never expected to see that. A lot of people could sit up there. Makes a lot of sense as big as she actually was. And you could see all the instruments that were installed to keep track of the airplane's performance. And here's the pilot's seat. This is where Howard Hughes sat when he flew the Spruce Goose. The one time that it ever took off, Howard Hughes flew it himself, and this is where he did it from. Of course, I couldn't resist the opportunity to take a selfie. From the flight deck, you could access the corridors that went down each of the wings where the fuel system was, because somebody had to constantly keep a watch on this system when the plane was in flight. All in all, it was a fantastic experience. If you're ever in the area, you should absolutely go. It's well worth it. When I travel for work, I'm not always in a ground vehicle. A lot of the times I'm flying, but whenever I do have the opportunity to drive to and from wherever the job site is, I'm always looking for interesting things to stop and see along the way. This is one of the few times that this allowed me to actually check something off of my bucket list. Thanks for watching. Be sure to leave a comment. What's on your bucket list? And please, like, share, and subscribe. This really helps us out, and make sure that you don't miss any future videos.